Chapter 14. Winning. Man is the most vicious of all animals, and life is a series of battles ending in victory or defeat. Donald J. Trump, 1981 People magazine interview. Does winning mean in the world today? This you will have to decide for yourself. Think about the fable of Country Mouse and City Mouse. Country Mouse lives safely in a leaky barn eating stale millet. He visits City Mouse, who lives in a palace and eats foie gras, only the palace is also inhabited by a ferocious cat, so the mice must always remain vigilant against sneak attacks. After a terrifying encounter with the cat, Country Mouse was like, "Forget this noise, my barn is safe and good enough for me." And City Mouse was like, "Cool, see you later. Enjoy the millet, you chicken shit." Before setting your sights on how far you want to climb within the organization, you should ask yourself how much pressure you are willing to take. Are you a City Mouse or a Country Mouse? Try to be honest with yourself. And make sure you're not acting as one while expecting the results of the other. If you are thinking, "Why the fuck are we talking about mice? I'm gonna be the cat," you are either deluded or a master, destined to become a drug lord, the founder of a new religion, or a successful dictator. The Beltway. The Beltway is a Country Mouse method and provides a good approach to business, if you want to protect your personal time. As a sociopath, you'll probably find this route boring, but it's an option worth considering for a moment at least. Beltways were built around sprawling congested cities like Washington, D.C., and Atlanta to allow you to drive from one side of the city to the other without actually going through the dense center. The Beltway approach is to skirt around the rush hour crush of people trying to get up. Don't set your sights on the thing everybody wants, because even if you can get it, everyone will be trying to steal it from you. Instead of the corner office, what about the one next door? You will have a lot more peace, and it still has a window. Ultimately, if you can find a way to enjoy the things nobody else really wants, you can make yourself very comfortable without getting caught up in the rat race. If you need excitement, find it somewhere else. If you aim to thrive, but don't look to domination as the core of your satisfaction, find the Beltway.
The top of the pyramid. You find your satisfaction in crushing and winning. City Mouse, this is you, angling for the top, the peak, head honcho, VIP, big league, CEO. This is about going for and getting the brass ring. And then keeping it. Take what you've learned in this book about pressure, presentation of self, confidence, competence, spillover, etc., and plot your course. There's one thing you should prepare yourself for as you climb the ladder, which Jerry Uzeem shows in Why It Pays to Be a Jerk. The higher you climb, the more frequent the acts of aggression, until, near the very top, aggression ceases almost completely. There's nobody left. It's quiet up here. From this vantage, you can become a master who quietly controls everything so that everyone does what you tell them to, and they want to do it. This is the rarefied air at the very top of the pyramid. The ultimate kind of winning. To build on the skills already discussed throughout this book, think about how you can improve your visionary persuasive powers. Having great vision is a gift. But you can improve your visionary IQ by practicing a few things which will aid you in becoming a master. I'm not bipolar. I'm by winning. I win here and I win there. I'm tired of pretending I'm not special. I'm tired of pretending I'm not a total bitchin' rock star from Mars. Charlie Sheen. Think bigger. This is hard for many people to do. As they get set in their ways, they also get set in their idea of what is possible. But because the future is wildly undetermined, this belief is absurd. Remember, when faced with something you want to do but isn't done, ask yourself, why not? Is it impossible? Is it illegal? Or is it just not customary? It will rarely be the first. The second might be dangerous for you. But if it's just not customary, try it out. You'll get away with more than you think. Here's an example from Louis C.K. I rented a car a couple weeks ago, and then when I went home, I had to drop the car at the rental place. You know, you gotta go to the rental place that's off the airport, give them the car, Give them your thing with the mileage. You got to get on a bus and then go to your terminal and check in. I was late and I was worried about missing my flight, so I knew I had no time to do any of that, so I never did this before. I just drove my car right to the terminal and just left it there. And I got on the plane. And once I was on the plane and I had a little moment, I called Hertz and I said, "Hey, listen, your car is sitting out in front of Terminal 4 and the keys are in it. So, that's where it is." And the guy was like, "You can't do that. You have to return it to this location and then get." And I go, "Well, I didn't do that already. And now I'm leaving California. So if you want your car, you need to go to that place where it is." And he was like, "Ah, Jesus, man. All right. We'll get it." And that was the end of it, and I realized I could do this every time.
Sculpt memory. We, amnesiacs all, condemned to live in an eternally fleeting prison, have created the most elaborate of human constructions, memory, to buffer ourselves against the intolerable knowledge of the irreversible passage of time and the irretrievability of its moments and events. There is only experience and its decay. Jeffrey Sonnabend, the instability and malleability of memory enables you to monkey around with someone's mind. Memory is surprisingly fluid and frail. There are many ways you can exploit memory biases to encourage someone to misremember in your favor. You can even make them have new memories. Amnesia is when you forget everything, but paramnesias or false memories also happen. Encourage others to remember something that never happened, and you can make them believe anything. We are a highly suggestible species. Remember cognitive fluency? Well, you can use it here. Suggest a false memory you want them to have. The more familiar and plausible sounding you can make the false memory, the more believable it will seem. Dave told us he had all the files, remember? I don't. We were by the copy machine. It jammed. And Rose got all flustered? Ha, Rose and that machine are something else. I know, right? Anyway, Dan came by and tried to help, with his jelly donut dripping onto his shirt. Oh yeah, sounds familiar. Remember? I think so, yeah. Okay, yeah, I do remember. Damn. Some scientists even suggest that extreme cognitive fluency is the cause of déjà vu. You are experiencing something so familiar you believe you are remembering it as it's occurring. If you could induce a déjà vu, now that would be some freaky shit. Misattributions. These are memory lapses where you remember something, but forget how you experienced it. The phenomenon is sometimes called source confusion. Did you see it on TV? Were you there? If you can make someone remember being somewhere, when in reality they only heard about it later, you can make them feel more responsible for a decision or mistake. As in, why didn't you say so when we were all there deciding to do it? Cryptomnesia. You read something, saw something, heard a really cool story, but forgot about it. Later you remember the cool story, but not where it came from, so you think it's your own imaginative idea and retell it as such. It's a common phenomenon, so feel free to use it as an excuse. Grab a great idea from someone else and run with it. If you happen to be accused of copying her story, simply say, "The premises may seem awfully similar, I agree, but I don't remember encountering the story before. If I read her account and repeated it, it must be a case of cryptomnesia." The accuser won't understand what you just said, so they'll believe practically anything you want them to.
Persistence. This memory bias causes awful events to be remembered repeatedly. If you can stage an awful event, you can really ravage someone's mental state with it, basically inducing PTSD. Peak end rule. Another memory bias you can exploit by making sure to go out with a bang. People remember how things wrap up, and tend to rate the overall experience based on how it ends. Finish strong and use the early stages of a projet to dick around and get what you need done for yourself. Rosy retrospection. This bias can help you smooth things over. Just reach back deep into the past to a familiar time or event, drop a "remember when," and let it go to work. We are hardwired to remember the past as being better than it was, so with a gentle reminder, you can get any asshole to start spouting off like a senile old man. In my day, we didn't have all this internet garbage. Life was simpler then. Things were simpler. America was great. Every generation does this. You will leave him reminiscing in a fog of nostalgia over a lost time, and he will forget why he was screeching at you just a moment ago. Spread mind viruses. When you hear the word meme, you'll probably think of the disgruntled cat photos and manic dance videos which explode across the internet daily. Or a 6-word tweet that is retweeted tens of millions of times by breakfast. But there's a deeper reason we casually call the phenomenon going viral. Evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins coined the word to describe a stable idea or unit of thought that spreads from one mind to the other without being altered or destroyed. Basically, the meme uses the human mind to replicate itself and spread by cultural transmission, much the same way a virus uses a cell. It sounds kind of crazy, but memes are stunningly effective. Once properly introduced, you can't unthink them. As genetic mutation is to evolution, memes are to cultural evolution. For example, Dawkins describes religion as a mimetic virus. It has spread for thousands of years, even though he says, faith is the great cop-out, the great excuse to evade the need to think and evaluate evidence. Faith is belief in spite of, even perhaps because of, the lack of evidence. Wait. This sounds familiar. Remember the backfire effect? Cognitive bias? Memes are like bias on steroids, let loose in collective thought. Ideas with power. People who invent and accelerate the spread of memes are sometimes called cultural entrepreneurs or folk devils. A craze, think Beatlemania, a cultural revolution, hippies or Chairman Mao, and the new must-have piece of technology, the first iPhone, advertising, are all memes. More significantly for you, because of its easy handleability and rapid transmission, you can weaponize a meme. Like mental Ebola, a properly launched, malevolent set of memes can cause mayhem like moral panics, the war on drugs, mass hysteria, the Salem witch trials, or even World War, Nazis. As you can glean from above, many great mimetic entrepreneurs are brother sociopaths. The best of them launch subterranean attacks on the collective mind. But even if you have no interest in being a meme creator or promoter in the culture, you can still use this concept to subtly manipulate those around you.
In the book, Virus of the Mind, Richard Brody explains, if you better understand how your mind works, you can better navigate through a world of increasingly subtle manipulation. The reverse is also true, the better you understand how others' minds work, the more subtly you can manipulate them. Tend the cosmic dark garden. Offer society its night terrors. Gossip is a great way to use memetics to ruin someone's reputation. It's simple, moves incredibly quickly, defies the usual channels of organizational hierarchy, and isn't subject to rigorous fact-checking. You can make something up out of the blue and simply say, I heard Jeff spotted Dan and Fran sucking face at the Alibi Lounge last night. By the time word gets back, even if Jeff denies it rigorously, it will be too late for the other two. Dan and Fran will be forever linked, in the minds of others, to a night that never was. The most powerful belief, as we've discussed before, is one a person thinks he's found for himself. Christopher Nolan expressed the difficulty of planting this kind of belief in his film Inception, where only a master can foster a belief in your mind without you realizing it. Inception, in this sense, is the ability, not only to make someone think they want to do what you want them to do, but that it's actually their own original idea, based on a deeply held belief about who they really are. Nolan expanded the meaning of the word inception from the simpler idea that it means origin point or beginning. Cito, inception. Is it possible? If you can steal an idea from someone's mind, why can't you plant one there instead? Arthur, okay, here's planting an idea. I say to you, don't think about elephants, what are you thinking about? Cito, elephants. Arthur, right. But it's not your idea because you know I gave it to you. Cito, you could plant it subconsciously. Arthur, the subject's mind can always trace the genesis of the idea. True inspiration is impossible to fake. Cobb, no, it isn't. You need the simplest version of the idea, the one that will grow naturally in the subject's mind. Subtle art. Despots want to have this level of control over people, but they usually need to resort to violence, brainwashing, and fear. Occasionally, they succeed, as George Orwell described in 1984, but it was all right, everything was all right, the struggle was finished. He had won the victory over himself. He loved Big Brother. The true master doesn't need to use this kind of coercion. Many times you don't even know who he is. And if you do know him, you love him, all on your own. Lessons from a master, Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar was a true master. At one time El Patron de Mal was the 7th richest man in the world. He enjoyed massive popular loyalty and years after his death is still beloved by thousands. Many consider Pablito the greatest outlaw of the 20th century. For a narco-terrorist who ordered the killing of thousands, including 600 police officers and a presidential candidate, had enemies burned and cut to pieces, and blew up a commercial 727 jet with 107 innocent passengers on board, he sure has a lot of fans. How did he do it?
Magnanimity. Only power can get people into a position where they may be noble. Alfred Kazan Escobar had remarkable charisma, and when he felt like it, showed excellent character and genuine regard for others. You'll recognize some of his behaviors as those discussed in this book. When I first met Escobar, it was like I had seen a god. He had this huge presence like an aura around him, says Popeye, Escobar's #1 assassin who planned 3,000 murders, executing 300 by his own hand. He just knew how people worked. Don Pablo was a very respectful man to those who gave it to him. He would capture people's minds through the affection he could show them as a friend. He never shouted once, never made snide remarks, nothing. He was a clear man. He spoke slowly with a lot of respect. He looked everyone in the eye when he spoke to them. Popeye says this about a man who asked him to murder his own girlfriend. If Pablo Escobar were born again, I would join him without a moment's hesitation. He was loved by us. He taught us to fight and gave us everything. Popeye's love for Escobar is that of a man who could kill and never lose a night's sleep. For Popeye, killing was simply like a day at the office. A relationship between two sociopaths is difficult to pull off, but can be immensely rewarding. Generosity. Pablo provided massive spillover not just for his crew, but for a much wider swath of the population, including the powerless and desperately poor. There's a neighborhood in his home city named in his honor, and people still sell shirts and trinkets emblazoned with his face. It's like wearing of a saint you have faith in, says one local. He helped thousands, and not surprisingly, their tangible gain was more important to them than the fates of strangers. We respect the pain of his victims, but we ask people to understand our joy and gratitude, what it means to move out from a garbage dump to a decent house, says another resident of Barrio Pablo Escobar. Pablito had so much to spill over that he ended up burying stacks of cash and treasure in secret caves all over the countryside.
Smarts. Pablo said he sometimes felt like a god because he could order a killing and it would go down the same day. Even so, he didn't let success go to his head. He always remained clever and careful. At some point, he was on the run and practically cornered. Hunted by the government and enemy cartels, and wanted in the United States, he agreed to surrender and serve a 5-year sentence, with 3 conditions. 1, he could design his own prison. 2, he could pick his own guards. And 3, he wouldn't be extradited to the United States. Thrilled to have caught him, the government agreed and built him La Catedral, a prison carefully designed to keep assassins out and the drug trade up and running. Set on a hill above his hometown and boasting a soccer field, jacuzzis, and a chapel, Pablo could see his daughter at her window while they talked together on the phone. It's not surprising the locals called La Catedral Hotel Escobar. Most of the time, he knew when to restrain himself. But then he arranged for 4 enemies to be brought in and murdered within the prison walls. Even a master sometimes makes mistakes. This one Pablito paid for with his life. The Colombian army surrounded La Catedral, intending to take Escobar back into custody. But Pablo vanished. Some say he simply walked out the back gate, others that he broke through a specially designed portion of the perimeter wall. Either way, he was gone. For 16 months the police, army, vigilante groups, and rival cartel members all searched for him in vain. The phone is death, Pablo had often said, and tracking his phone is in fact how his enemies eventually caught up with him. He was talking to his son when he heard his pursuers at the safe house door. Escobar escaped to the roof, but that is where he met his end. He had once vowed to shoot himself in the right ear before being taken alive, and his son said, "My father told me he had 15 bullets in his pistol, 14 were for his enemies and the last one for him." And so Pablo was found on the rooftop, the fatal shot to his right ear, his pistol by his side. Even death only improved his image. He remains a master from beyond the grave. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was also for a time the most powerful drug trafficker in the world. He protected thousands, killed thousands, escaped spectacularly from prison multiple times with the help of his tunneling henchmen, and had a stronghold in the Sinaloa mountains. But in some ways, El Chapo was a wannabe who Escobar got tripped up by his own hubris. He wanted producers to make movies about him. A true master makes the producers do the wanting. Guzman was star-fucked enough to invite Sean Penn to interview him for Rolling Stone, risking his own security and that of his men. He was caught because he established communication with actors and producers, which formed a new line of investigation. He is currently in jail in New York where tunneling is difficult. Note, mastery is extremely hard to achieve. Trying to force it will only get you in trouble. Let this be a lesson to you. You don't need to run a cartel to be a master. It's not about scale, it's about getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to. This is mastery. A subtle art. Mastery is separated from coercion and all other openly forceful and threatening techniques. It's not just winning because you have a bigger weapon. It's winning, with everyone rooting for you. We would rather talk to the people who manipulate the puppets. Robert Mugabe.